All right. Welcome to actually the third anniversary of me launching this Better Roadways podcast, YouTube version, initiative, talking all things about pavement management, pavement maintenance, preservation, all of those things. And what better way to kick off this video than to do a little bit of the journey, if you will, pavement management, a look back, a look to today, and a look where we're going, so why not have some fun with this one? I'm going to provide some insights in here on, what we were doing 20 plus years ago to where we're doing today and what we think is happening in the future, fun stuff, right? Here's a hint, probably has a little bit something to do with artificial intelligence, right? Spoiler alert. In any case, let's jump right on into it. So when I take a look at pavement management, as a professional, a CEO now, running a great company, doing these pavement management offerings direct to municipalities, I think back on how this whole thing started and wow. If you can imagine a younger James with a head full of hair, sure, it was balding, but I had a head of hair, did not have this beard, and it certainly wasn't as white as it is today. I was actually performing boots on the ground condition assessments starting back in 1998. So from my personal journey, I was an intern at the Ohio Department of Transportation. I was doing my schooling. I was going for a 2-year degree at the time at Central Ohio Technical College. And I had the opportunity to work for a little bit of a startup in the engineering space, civil space, predominantly doing pavement condition assessments and pavement management plans. That's what we were doing. And I was very fortunate to learn under a civil engineer with a great background in anything you can come up with relating to civil engineering, pavement management, condition assessments, distresses, construction, all of the above. So I started out getting in and out of the car 100 plus times a day doing what we would call random sampling, because guess what? Back then, we didn't have the technology that we have today to really perform these in-depth condition assessments. So if you take a look at a roadway network that has 100, 2, 3, 5, 1,000 centerline miles of roadway, that your job is to get out there and do a high-level condition assessment following a standard such as ASTM D6433. Your job is to what? It's to go out there and document all the different types of distresses, severity levels, quantities, get that into a database of some sort or a software application. Was probably desktop driven back in the day. We didn't have the SaaS type of services, that software as a service, cloud-based systems, back in 1998, 1999 that we have today. That took a lot of training. It took a lot of time, effort to go out and perform that. So you had to do more of a sampling methodology. And what does that mean? It means you break the network down into a logical pavement section, just like as we do today, but you had to do a sample. You had to find a representative location within that subset of a section, and you had to go out and perform the assessment. And then what we were doing is using the tools of pavement management software to extrapolate those distresses across the pavement section to give a better indicator of a network level, PCI in this case, pavement condition index number. Labor intensive, folks, very labor intensive, as you can imagine, some of you watching this probably have experience with and know. So that took a lot of time. It took a lot of time to get out there and do that activity. Then you had to get it into a data set, of some sort, which was a lot of manual data entry back then until things such as, personal, devices came out with some software, some lightweight software where you could actually perform electronically those assessments, sync it up to the software on the back end. So that sped things up a tad. And it got to the point where the hotel Wi-Fi in the late 90s, early 2000s was decent enough to be able to do those activities. And so that sped up that process of at least getting the data from an acquisition into the system so you can start calculating those conditions and doing the higher level things such as all the reporting, all of the predictive analysis, the project planning, the budget scenarios, all the things that these desktop softwares took hours to do that we all now do in seconds, which is pretty crazy. So that's how it all started. Going through and understanding what the ASTM designation was, understanding which each distress was, why it occurred, where it occurred, and then taking a look at best practices to help mitigate some of those distresses, solve those problems, and set roadway networks up for a better, long, healthy life. So the core principle of pavement management has not changed. It's evolved, and that's what it's all about, evolving, So when you get into the 2000s, you start to see the GIS systems coming online, being able to visualize and map all of this data, late 90s, early 2000s. You can take all this data, tie it to maps, and you can start to create these very in-depth, high level, if you will, maps. And presenting those to the client so that they can visualize and actually see the various types of conditionings happening in their network, not just stare and do a deep dive through a bunch of, distress-based Excel reports, right? Which was very cool within its own right. And at the time, before I really jump too much ahead, what I didn't really know then that I certainly know now that we were doing back in the day. I actually remember when I got my first 1.1 megapixel digital camera, which is very cool. We were documenting at least that sample location. So those distresses that we were reporting, we were taking a static image of that to be able to provide authenticity, transparency, be as objective as possible. That way, when we sat down with the client and we're taking a look at the conditions and diving into the stresses, you could go right to that image and say, look, it's right here. This is what it looks like. This is where it's happening. So, in addition to the documentation process, it became a great way to educate and to show some of those that may not understand exactly what's happening in these distresses, what it looks like, why it's occurring there, all of the above. And then you get into, the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and we start to see these great, van-based systems coming out with a lot of great technology at the time, revolutionary back then, where we can actually do a lot of scanning of the pavement with high resolution cameras. We can do downward facing. We had laser rut bars for things like International Roughness Index, all of the above. These vans, and they're still out in existence today. There's plenty of companies that still are doing this. The technology has evolved. Their back-end processes has evolved. But that allowed us to get that data quicker, get out of the boots on the ground type of situation, get into an office controlled environment and start looking at the post-processing of the data from that type of lens. Then you see, cameras and systems evolving, you get into the late 2000s, the teens, if you will, and these GIS systems are really coming on board, really coming on base. We're replacing desktop pavement management software with cloud-based software as a service. A lot of great systems and tools out there. But that component at that time, even to this day, for the most part, it's really been about a three-pronged approach to get everything that you need in terms of pavement management. So let's first define pavement management. What is it? What does it really mean? So for me, pavement management is a systematic approach to the annual maintenance and repair of your roadway network, not just a condition assessment. What we see in this day and age is there's plenty of companies out there with maybe a lower tech, AI type of offering where we can hook up a camera of some sorts, go drive the roadway network, and you get back a software as a service thing that you log into, and you get to look at all the pretty colors of your conditions. Maybe there's some distress data in there, that's fine, but no real actionable next steps to what to do with that. It's great to know that 13% of my network is in poor condition, but now what? So it's the what's next part of condition assessments that really brings pavement management into its own. And those next steps are treatment qualification, predictive analysis, modeling, forecasting, budget scenarios, all of the things that you need as a pavement manager to not just handle the current situation, but to set yourself up for success for the planning and the repairs in the future. More importantly, as you can imagine, we have our city council members, our county commissioners, they're tasked with a tough responsibility, and responsibility here of basically defining the budget, So if you're somebody that's coming in to those rooms and saying, hey, I need to fight for more funds, we need more money towards our roadways, that's fine. But you have to be able to prove the why, like I always like to say, facts tell, but stories sell. When you can visualize the data, you have good systems and tools in place where you can put that in front of somebody. What's that old analogy? Putting something together where a fifth grader can understand it. It's very important because our city council members, our commissioners, they're great in their own right at various different types of disciplines, but they're not going to care about deduct, density, algorithms. They just want to know, look, we're giving you this budget, right? What are we doing with it? Where are we going? How are we trending? And if it's not in the direction that we believe that matches our goals and objectives, what can we do about it? And that's what pavement management to me is really all about. So when we take a look at where things are at in this day and age, artificial intelligence is here. In many cases, it's like the wild, wild west, if I'm being honest with you. And it's not just in the pavement management space or condition assessment space, it's everywhere. There's some folks out there that don't buy into it. They're not ready to adopt it or believe in it. And the analogy for me is pretty simple. Once upon a time, there was plenty of people that I came across. You go back 10, 15 years ago, and we're talking about the value and the benefit of something like rejuvenation to your pavements. I had snake oil. I got burned on this in the past. I didn't see any improvement. Or maybe it was surface treatments. A city tried some microsurfacing or a cape seal or a chip and seal somewhere, and then it failed, ultimately because it wasn't the right candidate. But the contractor sold the client at that point in time on that treatment, even though it might have been the wrong candidate. They didn't have the data to suggest anywhere or the other. So what happens when the product failed? It didn't work. So we see some naysayers in AI. We see some great champions for AI. It's just important to understand that when you really break down artificial intelligence and where this whole field and where this whole thing is going, it really stems from who put it together. What were the components? What was the expertise from the human factor that really drove the artificial intelligence, the software, the technology? And that's very important. I think we need to be talking about that. I can really only speak to our company. That's it. That's all I would ever want to speak to. There's plenty of product offerings that exist out there. At the end of the day, that's what I love about America. You get to choose, but do your due diligence and ask the hard questions. Where did this come from? What were the machine learning aspects and the techniques and the processes that came about to show that this truly is an alligator crack or this PCI truly is a 55? All of the above. And again, going back to what I didn't know then that I know now, for 20 plus years, I started my first company in 2011. I founded Pavement Management Group in 2017. PMG 2.0 is underway with all of this artificial intelligence and technology. We're really moving from a consulting company, into a data analytics innovation type of company, but we're still rooted in consulting. We're still rooted in developing the direct municipal platform that I think is important. Remember, I was talking about that three-prong approach. Typically what you see in a lot of this stuff is, and I actually saw this across my desk last week. It's 3 different RFPs. There was an RFP that went out for a condition assessment, an RFP that went out for a software to stick the condition data into, and then an RFP that went out from the same city, by the way, all in one calendar year to be able to visualize, represent, interpret that data to create a 5-year CIP plan. And I'm over here shaking my head saying, my God, By the time that individual is tasked with developing these plans, that data could have changed because these things are taking a year to go get this data. Your expectation now and in the near future is you should be getting data that is current, it's up to date, it's standardized, it's objective, it's transparent, it's authentic, you can see it, and you can take action against it right now. You should be able to take action. There's no reason, I don't care how large your roadway network is. Now, again, I'm not talking about DOTs with 20, 30, 40,000 miles of roadways here. I'm talking about your typical U.S. municipality. You got sub 500 miles of road, maybe up to 1,000 miles of roadway. And you're challenged with getting this data in a timeline that actually matches your goals and objectives to put real project plans together, right? These things should be taking you 60 to 120 days for the most part. Then you have that information right in front of you and you've already got your treatments qualified for each roadway. Again, pavement management, if I really break it down and simplify it, right pavement, right treatment, right time. Very important. How do you get to those 3 action steps if you've got a condition assessment that you're operating with that's 5 years old? So we need to be able to see these things take place quicker, reasonable pricing for you, the client. And I really don't believe we should be locking up our clients or municipalities in these 4-year, 5-year contracts that say, hey, you're now stuck in my Pandora's box platform. You can't use data in and out of it. You're stuck here, and just to really be looking at a condition assessment with some lightweight tools. So I think we need to get back to information sharing. When you contract with a vendor, they should be very well versed in not just the condition assessment. They should be very well versed in treatment qualification, the construction activities that go into that, the unit pricing for your specific jurisdiction, as well as being able to convey this information to your constituent, which is your taxpayers, number one, your city councils. It's really all about maximizing your current budget. You've got a budget. Your budget is your budget for this fiscal year. How do we maximize that day one? We all know that in this country, because the American Society of Civil Engineers has documented it for all of us, The average roadway network out there is probably around a 60 to 65 on a 0 to 100 scale. You probably do not have enough money to get to your ultimate goals and objectives. We know that. We know you need more funding. But how can you go fight for more funds if you can't present the plan? Again, facts tell, stories sell. So we got to be able to do that. And what better way to get buy-in from your constituents by maximizing what you currently got? How do you do that? You start layering preventive maintenance, preservation. That should be a part of your pavement management plan. Simply milling and overlaying, rinse and repeating with your $1 million budget and only impacting 3 to 5% of your roadway network each year is just not going to get the job done. So a pavement management plan should be able to optimize the opportunity and show you where these things exist at a high level of confidence. I know we're able to do that. You get a condition assessment, that's great. Next up, where are the opportunities? I mentioned in rejuvenation, James, where do I do it? Where do I perform these surface treatments? Where do I perform, these different types of micro, cape sealing, slurry seals, chip, all of the above, whatever fits in your toolbox. And then more importantly, the pricing, the unit costs need to make sense to your locality for sure, right? And if you've got all that combined, when you're now engaging with your contractors, you've got qualified opportunity. That contractor does not have to go drive 100, 1,000 miles to go find the opportunities. They're already presented there for them. Very important. And if you've got all that, you can then get into your predictive analysis, future forecasts, and modeling. If your budget's $1 million and you want to, fight for another 25%, another 100% increase to really gain the value, you got to show. You got to be able to show where these opportunities are and what that impact looks like. So that's been my experience for all these years, being in the actual, what I would call war rooms, being in front of city council members, using our team's data to help convey and tell the story. We're really here to try to help. Pavement management offerings should become an extension of your current team. It should be a two-way street. This shouldn't just be a vendor that provides the data and says, see you, good luck. We wish you the best of luck in the future. A direct to municipal route makes a ton of sense. It really does. It makes a ton of sense in this day and age. And finally, when we take a look at the software component that's driving all of this stuff, we're relying on software as a service with these big fancy systems and tools, probably giving you too much information overload. The data coming out of that is only as good as the variables that you're putting into it. I've got horror stories left and right from people we onboard each and every month, year for sure at Pavement Management Group. It's like, number one, I paid all this money. I don't have my data yet. I paid all this money and my unit pricing doesn't make any sense. I paid all this money and my forecasting is off. It just doesn't make sense. So everything has to be in harmony. So again, when you're engaging with pavement management vendors in any way, shape, or form, they should have the discipline and the expertise in all sides. Distresses, condition assessment, organizing your inventory, visualizing that and presenting that in something like ArcGIS. When we take a look at where the future is going with all of this, obviously technology such as LiDAR, drone capture, high-tech, low-tech offerings are going to be there. It's more about the data acquisition on the back end. Is that producing a reliable, objective result that you can buy into, that you can see? It's transparent, it's authentic, very, very important. So the system side of all of this, as an entrepreneur myself, as a small business owner, as we're scaling Pavement Management Group, we have options. And what we decided to do is get the feedback from our hundreds of clients. What do they want? What do they see? Right? And what we found is, again, more information sharing, not sticking this stuff up into Pandora's box and saying, I'm stuck here. How do I share this with their internal GIS departments? Because we know that government is typically a little behind schedule in terms of technology often. That's why they rely on the vendors, the consultants, the contractors to help them out, right? And our consulting engineers, but what we're seeing is an influx of GIS becoming a great discipline that more and more cities, if you are onboarding GIS individuals, GISPs into their ecosystem, because there's a lot of opportunity for GIS. Pavement management and GIS should be a one-to-one. They should be going together, like the old peanut butter and jelly sandwich, whatever analogy you want to throw in there. So what we decided to do was present and visualize all this data through our own GIS development tools, but it's all tied into ArcGIS. Our users, our clients already have ArcGIS user licenses. Why not log in and then get the PMG or the pavement management experience, if you will? Being able to see what's happening out there. We're big fans of video, so if a picture's worth 1,000 words, I think a video's worth 1,000,000. Being able to get into your management system and not just looking at a static image, or relying on Google Street View that's 5 years old, but seeing an actual high definition video with a nice clean capture that not only shows transparently all of those distresses, but it gives you additional value. You can see all the additional types of assets and things that are happening there. Getting into that, pavement management is becoming more asset management driven, being able to capture, anything along the lines of, your catch basins, your striping, things within the curb line, anything within that right of way, maybe more specific, curb to curb that would affect or drive a decision that you would make for the maintenance and repair activities. Very important. Artificial intelligence can do a really great job with all of that. But what's very important, especially in these early stages, the infancy of AI, if you will, is quality assurance and quality control. It's one thing to develop an algorithm to detect things. It's another that those detections are getting constant feedback from an expert, so it gets a little bit better, over and over again. Because guess what? If the output is bad, a bad result, and we're not doing any training or quality assurance against it, it will continue to consistently be bad. Very important. So what we see is a combination. It's an AI assist model. Yeah, PMG, we're very fortunate to be able to develop our own AI offering. We believe, why not us? It should have been us from day one. We have all the skill sets and experience in that ASTM and distress discipline. Now it's just getting that into the ecosystem of machine learning and labeling and developing these algorithms at a very high level. But we've got to constantly retrain the model. We got to constantly give it feedback. We got to post-process this stuff under the quality assurance lens. So as the client for pavement management, when you see a road that has a PCI of a 30 and the condition is poor, and you go look at that video transparently, it all matches up every single time. Because remember what I was talking about earlier, the future, where we're going with all this stuff. We want to make sure at a high confidence level that now I'm programming that roadway for a specific event that's tied to a specific unit cost, that's taking a look at the entire network as well. Overall, we got to convey this information again to the constituent, the taxpayer, your councils, all of the above. Set you up for success. That's where it's all going. I'm not really sure what the future of software as a service in terms of standalone systems are for just pavement management related activities. Generative AI is coming online along with the AI of, the distress, different assets and things like that. I'm very excited about what the future holds for being able to provide all of that wrapped up into one service, especially when you take a look at a company like Esri, ArcGIS, the most trusted GIS company on planet Earth, and their initiatives. When you can align with that and create a really great offering that checks all the boxes, I think you've got a winner. And I think that's where the future is going. We're not going to be the only company doing that. There's going to be plenty of them doing that, and that's not the case here. It's not the fight for PMG. It's just a fight for the future of pavement management, and what your expectation should be when you sign up with a vendor, a contractor, anything along that line. I want to make sure you're getting a quality result and make sure they're becoming an extension of your team to set you up for success. That's what it's all about. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Hey, a little bit of a look back into boots on the ground to laser crack measuring systems, high tech, low tech, data acquisition, all the above, artificial intelligence, LiDAR, drones coming online. There's all this cool stuff happening. At the end of the day, think about the final result. Pavement management, systematic approach to the annual maintenance and repair. You want to have a modern approach to your pavement management. More importantly, you want to be able to maximize that investment. That's what you want to do. Maximize your current opportunities, optimize, and let's all work together as professionals to really fight the good fight. And that's helping our neighborhoods, our cities our residents experience a higher quality, longer lasting roadway network. That's where I'm going to end it right here. If you enjoy these types of episodes, we'd love to hear the feedback. Please drop us a comment. At any given time, you can reach out to me. I love constructive criticism. Not a big fan of jumping into arguments of who, what, when, there, and why. That's not important. What's important is all working together. I'm very open-minded. I don't have all the answers. You all are great thinkers. You're great innovators yourselves. Let me hear your thoughts on where you think things are going, what you think is next. I'd also love to hear your journey, your stories. Tell us your story. How did you start in this type of space? Where are you currently at, or where are you looking to do? Until the next one,